Hi there, I'm Mel, and I am excited to spend a few minutes with you right now and just help you think of ways to make your knitting more enjoyable, perhaps, or maybe make it more of a creative adventure. Hi, friends that are joining in on the live, it's good to see you. I usually chat with you out of doors, but this week has been very windy here in Kodiak. And so as I was trying to talk and share today, all you were hearing was wind. So if you have a couple of minutes and you're enjoying your knitting or your crochet or whatever it is that you have your hands making, I'd like to share with you a little more about something that I shared on my blog this week. And it was about a happy hat. And what I'd like to do today is talk to you about how we can take this yarn that it requires and have a little bit of fun with our stash and perhaps create some really unique alternatives to, instead of using a bulky yarn, but a way to kind of go through and combine yarns to replicate this. And so what I'd like to do first and foremost is thank you for joining me. I hope that this short time together is going to be something that just kind of helps you feel excited and refreshed in your knitting today. My strong desire is to make it so not only are you working stitches, but you are you're excited about the things that you can think about and the different tangents on which you can explore that helps your knitting. So what I'd like to talk about today, again, there's more information on my blog, which is encouragebetter.com, and will be linked in the show notes, whether you're watching this on the replay for IGTV or for YouTube. And there are some really fun activities in that blog post that hopefully will add a bit to what I'm going to share with you today. So this hat really is a happy hat. I love this hat. It was a simple make, and by simple I mean very straightforward in the construction. If you know how to knit, if you know how to purl, and work two stitches together, you can make this hat. Simple, easy, no big deal. Let me just show you a close-up of the stitches. I want to show you the close-up of the stitches not only because the color is amazing and the movement and the variation of the colors in the hat is amazing, but the stitches, I think it's important that you see, the stitches are rather thick and the hat itself is really sturdy. I'm going to show you real quick the yarn that I used, and then what I'd like to do is show you very quickly how you can dig into your stash and put a lot of your stash to good use and make your own version of a yarn. Whether you use it for a hat or not, sometimes it's great to have someone come alongside of you and remind you, my friend, you are extremely clever and you're full of resources, and part of those resources are lying in your stash. So this is what the yarn looks like. So it's really not even so much, there's no twist to it. It's thick, it's bulky, and then there is along it, there's a wrap strand that kind of holds it together. Very lofty, very squishy. To get to know a bulky yarn, again, on the blog, there are some fun activities that help you with this. So my intention was to take this and recreate it. And I did just that in a bunch of different versions. And I know you guys have seen me wearing these. They're so much fun. The colors, one of the things that I really liked about this original hat was the movement of colors. And the yarn itself has a lot of that in it. And so as I was thinking through how am I going to recreate this yarn, I don't really have a lot of bulky yarn. I want to knit for my stash. Anybody here made it a resolution or a goal this year to actually use more of their stash? My friend, if that's you, then this is a great idea. So the movement of the color in that original yarn was something, again, that I wanted to replicate. And by holding multiple strands of yarn together, a very light fingering weight collection of a variety of different colors, I would get that. And if you look, that's what we have here. But if you'll also look, it's worth mentioning that it starts off one color, and do you see how the colors change? They really do. And my attention level, if any of you have spent any time with me, you know that my attention level changes. And so what I did is throughout, I would pick different strands to intermix. This hat pattern is going to be available free to you later, but I wanted to talk with you about thinking through and choosing your yarn. Again, this hat, multiple movements in the color, and that was created from the fact I used 5 different colors of yarn, and one I held throughout. I want to show that to you. It's definitely got its own movement to it. It's a slubby yarn, and all the yarns I'll share more about in the show notes. But this is the only one that I held throughout, and that gave the color a little bit of continuity. So you can see the cat. You can see where the green is present the whole way through. What I did though is I took a bunch of mini skeins, a variety of mini skeins, and I balled them up, and I used 5 at a time. So I used 4 minis, fingering weight. Let me show you. They're just thin. You could use scraps, and the scraps are fine for what purpose they're going to serve. So those 4 I held with this one continually. Now what I'd like to suggest is, as you knit, the great thing about using scraps, there are a variety of lengths and amounts. So you just have several on hand. Have a bag of scrap yarns, and either as they run out or at will, you simply take out of the 5, I have 1 that I held throughout. 1, when it would run out, I'd add a new one. 1, when I'd get bored, I'd add a new one. So I constantly had 5 strands and simply changed the color. But my friend, the point that I wanted to share with you that really made me feel excited is the fact that this was the called for yarn. This bulky weight yarn is what the hat asked to be knit in, right? So that was what was required. You don't have to use bulky yarn. You are a knitter with a capital K, and your last name or your middle name, whichever, is probably creative with a capital C. And that creativity isn't just in the actions of our knitting, but also how you and I approach our knitting. It's fun to know that we have this freedom, this kind of liberation with our stash to use it for whatever in the world we want to, right? So you can take fingering weight yarn that's really destined to be a sock, called sock weight yarn, and you can marry those, couple it together with several different ones. Experiment and see how you can put together your own bulky yarn. Another suggestion that I had, let me make sure I have it in here. Did I grab it? Yes, I did. Hold on. It's behind you. So the other thing that I did, and I haven't shown you guys this one yet, but this is what I have left. So I knit a bear, and I used a worsted weight yarn for the bear. And this yarn I used in another hat. So this is thicker. This kind of takes the place of 2 strands of the fingering weight. But taking this and coupling it with this and this, it made a beautiful hat, which I'll be sharing soon. But you can have scraps of heavier weight and lighter weight to combine to recreate a different weight of yarn. And so really all I wanted to share today, friend, is the fact that we as knitters, we are creative. We can make our own things. We can make our own hats, we can make our own gloves, we can make our own leg warmers, we can make our own sweaters. We have the ability to make. We can follow a pattern, or we can forge our own path and create our own. We can adjust patterns and we can readjust patterns. But I want you to know that it starts even before your first stitch. Your creativity and your just genius of being a human with all this creativity inside of you, my friend, you can start at the beginning by creating your own one-of-a-kind yarn combinations. If you need DK, well, friend, go to your stash. And let me just real quick, I know I have gone over the 5 minutes, but let me just say something real quick about my stash. I, for the longest time, had stash that I wasn't curating a stash, I was really hoarding it. I was keeping it and waiting for that perfect time to use the stash. And what I really wanted was to make something that was meaningful. And I have discovered that using my yarn is meaningful. Whether I take that and incorporate it, like I said, with a hat, because there are pieces in here that are very special mini skeins that I had that I wanted to hold on to something amazing. Well, the act of knitting was amazing enough. And there's a sense of freedom and joy when we dig in and use our stash. And so if you maybe are borderline on holding tightly to your yarn rather than kind of holding it loosely to let it become something, I want to let you know from my experience, it's great fun to just dig into that stash. And so I hope that today, as we're talking and we're thinking through being meaningful knitters, mindful knitters, knitters who are having purposeful fun, let your imagination take you for a walk, a run through what stash you have. See how you could put that stash to good use. I'm super stoked. I took this idea and ran with it. This and this, even though they look like hats to you, were actually swatches for me. And the sweaters that I'm knitting right now are indicative of this. And they're such fun. It's a lot of fun to play with your yarn. And so I just want to invite you to think about the fact that you know you're creative. You know you're talented because you can knit things. But you can take that and back it up and start that creativity even earlier in the process. You can create your own yarn. You don't have to be a dyer, you just have to be a grabber. Grab some yarn from stash, ball it up, twist it up, play with it. Again, if you head over to the website, the blog post is a happy hat, and in it I give a couple of fun, just simple exercises that kind of give you the opportunity to think through ways to approach combining yarns of different weights to create a yarn that you need. I hope that you guys are all having a great day. I hope that your weekend or your week ahead, whenever you're watching this, is filled with joy and happiness. I want you to know that whether you're making or thinking about making, or you've never even taken the first stitch, if you've never taken the first stitch, knitting is amazing, and it's something that I think everyone should learn to do. It's such a joy, it's such a gift, and you are too. You are amazing. You were created on purpose with so much inside of you that is just a pleasure for the world to see your gifting. So go and do something that makes you happy. For me, it was playing with stash. And if you're excited about playing with stash, I hope that you'll join me in the days to come. I'm going to share this free pattern and some other ideas with you just for fun. Thanks for joining me. Take care.